That's what we do, man's on the grind, that's what we do. Ain't gonna stop, evolving our game on a daily basis. Stay on the top of the game, make a statement into the win. We ain't gonna lose, it's the grind don't stop, but I need your boost, I'll see you at the top.
Team, welcome back to the Evolve Your Game podcast. I'm extremely excited to introduce our next guest, Tommy Herschell from Find Your Feet, a great little organisation in Australia. He's doing amazing things with young men, young people, well, actually all people, but particularly young men. And the Find Your Feet is what it's called, and it is an exceptional little organisation, charity, that basically helps young people get to know each other better, be vulnerable, make them understand that everyone's going through tough times and everyone has tough times, and just making people feel less alone, working in that mental health space. And usually the reason I'm putting this wee prequel into the podcast is usually our guests are obviously athletes or sports psychs or coaches, and Tommy has got a sporting background. But the key thing is I think all the stuff that Tommy's doing is stuff that we as coaches and players could do better. So actually getting to know our players at a really deeper level, being more connected. We have social media and we think we know what everyone's up to, but it's just a highlight reel. So getting to know each other on a deeper level, knowing when people are doing it tough, how to actually have a serious conversation. When we know that people are struggling and we're seeing them doing some dumb stuff and actually calling it out, knowing how to have those courageous conversations and creating space where we can actually, people can share their stuff and own their stuff and actually get it out there. So you'll love this. Tommy's a great man. He's bloody funny. He reminds me of the honey badger, and you'll love it. So make sure you strap in and listen. I'm sure you get a lot out of it. I've really enjoyed it. Okay, kia ora team. Welcome back to the Evolve Your Game podcast. I'm very excited to have our first Australian on their podcast. Our guest today, former teacher, West Tigers ground announcer, sports broadcaster, and CEO and founder of Find Your Feet, the organisation that is building better blokes. Pretty cool little organisation, and I've sort of stumbled across, so I guess it's Tommy Herschell. So welcome along, Tommy.
Thanks, legend.
I'd stumbled across your content, ironically, on, I think it was last Friday, which was in New Zealand. We had this pink shirt day, which is like stand up for bullying. I don't know if that's a
right
thing.
I like that.
Is it just a Kiwi one, or is it?
I think so. But mate, I like it. Nah, you Kiwis are always one step ahead of us. So you're 2 hours in front in time, and you're also like always in front of us on the scoreboard, things like that.
Wow. Not a few sports, not all of them. So I stumbled across your, like, obviously I was similar background to you, taught for about 14, 15 years, and some of the conversations you have on your workshops, man, are pretty incredible. For like, even if they were 17, 18, it would be incredible. But some of these guys are like, primary school. So can you tell us a little bit about, well, let's just start with you. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you sort of found your way into starting Find Your Feet?
Yeah, well, mate, thanks for having me. First of all, I bloody love you, Kiwis. You're legends. I started off my year by going to the first test at the Basin in Wellington.
Oh, nice.
And mate, I got off the plane, got straight to my hotel, and knocked out like a 15K run up through all that country up behind the cake tin there. Mate, I was absolutely blown away. Nice. So, mate, from the Gold Coast in Queensland, on the East Coast, grew up in Tugun, chalky by trade, so school teacher by trade. A lot of it. Yeah, chalky. Mate, a chalky or a graphite pusher. Mate, I share the same story as a lot of people, like parents split up at a young age. Obviously as one of the children in that sort of a situation, nothing's really explained to you other than, you're wondering where one of the parents has gone and why you're spending a week here and a week there. And mate, for me, my story, I'm sure, will come out more out throughout this, but I started Find Your Feet because I just didn't process it for a good 35 or 25 years.
Yeah.
And I was angry, I was loose, I was, out of control when I was with everyone. But then when I was on my own, I was soft, I was crying, I was wanting to know, where Dad was, and I'd cry down the phone, and mate, yeah, I could never ever process it. And obviously I went through, a stage of being able to do that at school, but then for me, alcohol became a great way to do that as well, which was be the funny guy, the life of the party. You're allowed to cry, you're allowed to tell your mates, I love you, mate, when you're pissed, and then the next day you can be like, hey, did I tell you I loved you last night? Sorry, mate, it doesn't matter, you were drunk, and mate, it got to a point one night, where it sort of all got out of hand, and I had a mate pull me up, and that's sort of when I found my feet, and that's where it comes from. But it's compounded by I was really lucky to meet a champion young fella called Bastian Mardrell, who when I met him, he was 15 and a half, I was 32. Mate, he was genuine, he was selfless, he was his own man. I was a functioning alcoholic. I was selfish, and I was a victim, and I just followed everyone else. Mate, he'd been playing footy. He got a cork in his leg, and went to the doctor the next day, and the doctor said, "Hey, look, you just got a cork, you mate. Well done. You diagnosed yourself. You'll be right in a few days." Did that for 6 weeks until eventually his mum said, "Hey, we're not going anywhere until you tell us exactly what's going on with him." They did some scans and then came back a few days later that he had Ewing sarcoma, a really aggressive form of cancer. And then they said, look, you've probably got 4 to 6 months to live. In that 4 to 6 months, I was lucky to hang out with him. And like I said, he was just an incredible young man. I often saw him in front of his mates say, hey, boys, why are we behaving like that? I'd see him step away from his mates when they were behaving like dickheads. And I was in awe of him because he was 15 and a half, and here I was at 32 doing the opposite. I was following the crowd. I was doing all the easy stuff. And, mate, he passed away 4 days after his 16th birthday. And on the last day that he was on the earth, he said to his mum and dad, about 2 in the hour, I want you to take me out in the backyard. I want to touch the earth with my feet one more time. And they said they walked him out in the backyard, and he put his feet firmly on the ground, and he looked off in the sun, and he turned to his mum and he said, hey, mum, tell my mates to love life and just don't waste it. And that was one of the last things he ever said. And she rang me. His mum, Claire, is a beautiful lady, rang me at 6:30 that night and said, Tommy, he's passed, but I want to let you know what he did. And when she told me that story, mate, I was sitting there watching my kids run around the house. I was whinging about the noise and the mess. I was drunk. I was doing all the easy shit. And I just remember thinking, I'm wasting my life here. Like, I'm not loving it. And Bass is gone. And I've got an opportunity. What am I going to do? And it wasn't until another 3 years later that I completely capitulated. And I'm sure we'll tell a bit more of that story later. But for me, it was that first moment where I stopped and went, right, what's going on here? And I guess I found my feet. So that's the opportunity I give young people now. I go around to schools, and older people as well. I go around to schools, corporates, sporting groups. And we literally, in 2 hours, we'll stop, find our feet, and work out where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going. Tell stories, own behaviours, and then shift the culture. And the way that happens is, simply a young fella the other day stood up in a workshop and he said, I want to apologise to the whole room. I've bullied everyone in here. So he told his story. He then said, at home I've got stuff going on. My old man beats me up heaps. And he goes, I come to school and I take it out on you guys. So he owned his shit. And then, he looked around the rooms and he goes, I've seen the impact of my behaviour today. And it's really made me realise what I'm doing. And so, there's him changing or shifting culture. So, yeah, it's awesome, mate. 4 workshops in the program, travel around Oz and hopefully soon Kiwi and just get to meet legends in their in probably one of the most powerful moments in their lives. It's awesome.
I saw on your website these young fellas, mullets, sort of pretty blokey dudes, and they walk in and say, "Oh, I thought this would be bullshit," and then they really you get through to them. So that's pretty awesome. But how did you learn to create how'd you learn the techniques or the ways of creating that space? And
Mate, such a good question. I've actually been thinking a lot about it lately. Like, I reckon there's a lot of people out there we know there is. They're just bullshitting each other, and then they call themselves experts and bloke whisperers. And, mate, the minute a bloke walks in front of me and tells me he's an expert in something, I just go, well, I got no need to talk to you if you know everything. I want to be in front of people that are making mistakes. I want to be in front of people that do something wrong and then go, oh, shit, mate, I'm sorry about that. I shouldn't have done that. Like, that to me is powerful, right? So, yeah, I mean, how do you do it? For me, the minute I walk into a room, I'm vulnerable and I'm owning my stuff and I'm telling the boys exactly where I'm at. And yeah, I think that's one of the big mistakes that we make is, we can put ourselves up on pedestals and the minute we do that, like physically people have to crane their neck in a way and sort of look, if I stand on a stage and do these workshops, people are looking up at me and there is already then this belief of, oh, you're on a stage, you're at this point in your life, wow, you're awesome. I'll never get there. But mate, I don't ever do that shit. I'm down with the participants going, hey, like I'm one of you. I'm still every now and again leave my house arguing with my wife because I've been rude or I've done this. I still have moments where I'll go to the pub and I might have 5 or 6 instead of what I know I should have, which is 2 or 3. And I wake up going, geez, why did I have that bloody last beer? I should have left. But there's also the disarming techniques, like I love nothing more than walking into a room and seeing a bloke with a mullet and going, mate, top mullet, mate, have a look at you. And, I got this awful one here. And boys, and I'll say things like, boys, I'm 43. I didn't go through puberty till I was 38. And bloody God didn't give me any shoulders either. And they laugh, and you might drop the odd swear word, and they go, shit. This bloke's not a teacher. This bloke's not an expert. He's one of us. And you have a conversation, and mate, I reckon I learnt a lot of that in fortunately and unfortunately, growing up in pubs, my generation, us kids grew up under tables in pubs, didn't we? The old man, you went home with the old man when he was ready to go home and you played outside and you did all that, but you listened and you watched and there was things that you picked up that you liked and there was things that you dropped that you didn't like. And one of them for me was those blokes that would be like, being able to have a yarn with a mate, but go, oi, Robbo, what's up your ass? You're behaving like a bloody lunatic, mate, Oi, and bloody look at, and that's sort of brought in a lot of that old school sort of culture into these workshops. And I think young blokes just relax when they realise that it's not traditional bloody talking to. Instead, it's talking with.
And I guess it's a bit of a knock on. Like, it takes one kid has the courage to start it, and then it sort of steamrolls from there. Is it? Is that how?
Yeah, that's
I imagine
it,
it might
mate.
be a bit to start with, and then it sort of something happens.
It sort of drops straight in, It's so the way the workshop works is I sort of throw 2 things in them. I go, boys, like, if I was to walk in here and just straight away sitting amongst you fellas who are yarning about weekends, sports, gaming, punting, parties, that's what you talk about, eh? And they go, yeah. I go, if I was to throw in like, hey, that I'm struggling with getting sleep because I'm anxious about school, what would you do? They go, oh, man, we'd piss ourselves. Or some blokes go, oh, you don't really do that in front of the fellas. So you can start to have that convo. I go, all right, so I'm not allowed to do that. What about if one of you blokes is up to no good and I'll throw you under a bus and tell someone about it? What are you going to do? And they go, oh, man, you don't snitch on your mates. Snitches get stitches. And I go, all right.
That's good.
And what about if I'm trying to impress you lads? Like, what do I do? And they go, oh, you do stupid shit. I go, all right, so I take risks. Yeah, man, you take risks, do stupid stuff. You got to do that. Again, I write those 2 things on the board. I go, okay, we'll find your feet. We give you a platform to tell your story, skills to own your stuff, tools to turn that around. Let's turn these 2 things around because I reckon that's shit. If you've got a mate who's up to no good, he's playing up, say he's really good at his rugby league, at his sport in general, right? And he's not showing up to training. He's not giving 100%. He's drinking heaps of piss. And you know that, and he's a good mate of yours, and you're not saying anything to him, well, you're dogging him. That's dogging your mate. Not snitching on him is dogging him, right? And to do that, you got to take a risk. Now, you blokes take risk. You do stupid stuff. You might drink heaps of piss. You might get with a girl and tell everyone to impress them, which is a shitty thing to do. This is called taking a risk. This is when you go, oi, mate, I'm going to tell you because I love you, but you're playing up. Like, you're not focused on your footy. And I had that, mate. I was really lucky. I had a really good mate of mine, Neil Pringle. He played at the Balmain Tigers in the late 70s in Newtown, and incredible rugby league player. And I'd ring him all the time full of piss and cry down the phone. No one knows what it's like. No one cares. And, mate, one night he said, mate, F off. Don't ring me like this anymore. He's 20 years older than me. He said, don't ring me like this anymore. He's 30 years older. He said, I'm done with it, mate. He goes, I love you, but I'm sick of it. Like, he goes, I deserve better. He goes, your missus deserves better. And he goes, mate, but you deserve better too. He goes, I can keep taking these phone calls, but nothing's going to change. He goes, you got to own your shit, mate. You know, it's your old man shit. It's not yours. You do something about it. He goes, ring me tomorrow when you're sober. Like, on that night, he no longer dogged me. He no longer enabled my shitty behaviour. And he took a risk because I could have just gone, you know, F you, Bing, and hung up the phone. But I didn't. I went, wow, what a solid mate. So, yeah, that's, you know, once that drops in and I put that to the boys, I go, boys, like, have a think about it. Have you got a mate that would do that for you? And I call that the Find Your Feet pit crew. Like, who's those blokes that you got that when you pull that car into the garage, they're going to be there to change tyres for you? But also, who are those blokes that when you're out on the road, you can ring them and go, hey, boys, I'm struggling? Or they can ring you and go, hey, Robbo, you're going no good. What's happening, mate? And once you put that into their heads, you know, they start to think about it. And then I give them an example of how we do it, you know, like I'll say, you know, like when we say, how are we to a mate? How are you? Yeah, good, mate. Good. Yeah, nah, we're good. Yep. In Australia, you know, yeah, nah.
Not bad.
And, but when a mate actually says, oh, how are you really going? You know, you really, if they're a solid mate, you can dive into it. And I always tell the boys, like, I remember being at primary school one day and high school, grade 8. And the boys were there and, you know, it was an awesome opportunity for me to get a laugh out of her. I'm like, how are you, mate? Yeah, good, buddy. Went down the footy club on the weekend, stole a cut and a piss. We all played up, rock roofs in Chugan, had a hell time, right? And I remember everyone leaving and one bloke was left and there was this guy, Jay McDermott, great golfer, great footy player. And Macca goes, Tommy, hey, mate, how are you actually going? Because you're talking shit. Like, what are you doing, mate? And I went over to him and said, oh, yeah, Macca, yeah, my old man was meant to come down on the weekend. He didn't show up again and gave me a crap excuse, hurt me. So I went down the footy club and I made a heap of crap decisions and stole piss and rock roofs in my own town, told mum to F off when I got home late. And, yeah, I'm actually regretting a fair bit of it. And he goes, well, mate, you know I got issues with that sort of stuff. Let's get behind each other. This weekend, you know, come to footy with me. Let's play golf Sunday as a gun golf. Let's play golf. Let me start picking you up of a morning and driving you to school as grade 12. And, you know, and I say to the boys, what's the difference between that first and the second thing? How are you compared to how you're really going? Well, the second one, my good mates, my pit crew get to put a bloody plan around me and support me and look after me. You know, and be those solid mates. And then I put it into sporting terms. You know, Nico Hines is one of my ambassadors. And I say, imagine when Nico comes up from Cronulla from Melbourne Storm to Cronulla. Imagine the morning before he gets on the plane, he goes, I'll just go for one more last run around the town in Melbourne. Goes for a run, does something to his knee, doesn't know what it is, but he thinks, shit, I better not tell Cronulla, they've just paid decent money for me. Gets on the plane, lands in Sydney. Fitzgibbons picks him up. They take him up to Wanda Sandhills. You know, the great DJ Holdsworth, a trainer, puts him through 10 Ks of Sandhills. He blows his knee out and he doesn't play again all year, right? But if he's honest enough to say, hey, boys, I'm actually not going that good. I've tweaked my knee. I shouldn't have ran this morning, but I'm keen. I'm towing to get up there. He goes, don't worry. I've got scans already. Our rehab team in Melbourne will send them up to our new crew in Cronulla. He gets off the bus. They take him back to the footy club. They put a plan around him. He gets put in a rehab group. Yeah, he misses 4 or 5 weeks, maybe at the first few games, but he comes out and plays the best footy that he's played. And it's the same with the young blokes. If we can say to them, oi, boys, instead of going and getting on the piss for these next few weekends, let's get off the piss. Let's go do some long runs. Let's do some long swims. And then let's have a beer in 4 weeks when it's Mick's birthday. And what they realise when they come back, they no longer need to have 20 beers.
Yeah.
You know, they've gotten rid of that anger through the running or the swimming or chatting about it. They go, shit, boys, I love getting up at 5, going surfing. Let's go home. We've had 3. So we're changing the
Yeah.
mindset. And then I'll give them an opportunity to do that in front of each other, but to not have to talk. So I'll say, find your feet. If you've ever experienced anxiety, find your feet. If you've ever experienced loneliness, and run them through 20 or 30 of those. And they stand up one by one, and the boys get to see each other that have done things. They're like, whoa, we're all the same. I'm not on my own.
Yeah.
And then there's 2 last questions that smash them out of the ballpark, which is find your feet if you've ever, I find your feet, if you're always there for your mates no matter what. And you'll get blokes stand up, mate, bang their chest, bloody oath I am, mate. You know, I'm always here for the boys. And they will stay standing. If you've ever had something going on and you didn't bother reaching out, you're like, I'll just deal with it on my own. And you get 90% of them stay up and they go, why didn't you reach out? And I'll give me 4 or 5 reasons. I'll write them up on the board, but they're always the same. I don't want to be a burden. It's my issue, not theirs. I'll do it on my own. I don't want to be seen as weak. I go, perfect, boys. Thanks for that. Put it up. Go back to the room and go, geez, it'd be epic to hear from someone on one of those. And, you know, a kid the other day stood up and I'll give you a good Kiwi one because you legends are Kiwis. And, you know, he stood up and he's like, boys, I struggle with the pressure of footy. Like I struggle with the fact that, one day I might make it, but I've got a lot of family that I've got to support, you know, and I live in fear of if I don't make it, I won't be able to support them. And they've done so much for me already, you know. And he was a big boy and, you know, top dog. And the boys just looking at him like, oh.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, there's been moments where I don't want to be here anymore. And I've thought about taking my own life. And, you know, this kid's like 15 and his mates are in tears watching him. And, you know, like that'll happen with 2 or 3 boys. But then I'll go back and go, all right, boys, who enjoyed that? Like who enjoyed seeing AJ talk the way he just did? And they'll be like, mate, that was epic. You know, like there was emotion, there was respect, vulnerability. And I call kids like him an icebreaker. And you asked before, how do you get them to open up? Well, he's like that huge ship that smashes that pack of ice and he leaves a clear path for other little boats to come through, right? And other stories to be told. And I say to the boys, did you love that? And they go, that was epic. And then I go, well, boys, I've got to be honest with you. And I press the clicker and up comes the next screen, which says excuses for not sharing your stuff or the easy street. And I put up the 4 things that they said. It'll be, don't want to burden anyone, my issue, not theirs, don't want to be judged, don't want to be seen as weak. I go, anyone reckon old mate who just shared a story about, you know, wanting to take his own life because he's worried about providing for his family, anyone think he's weak for sharing that? And they'll go, no. And I'll go, well, you blokes said that. Go, no, he's strong, he's courageous, he's proud, like, he should be proud, boom. Anyone feel burdened by it? And you'll get another dude who feels the same way and go, nah, Tommy, I feel relieved because I share that story. And I go through and rewrite those. And once that's happened, mate, they're looking around at each other like they're brothers, you know. They're like, shit, we had no idea that we all experience this. And in a way, like that's happens in the first 30 minutes. They've found their feet. And then you got an hour and a half with them to compound and celebrate what they've done and then run into the next 3 workshops. But the Kiwi boys are always, and I'm not pissing in you blokes' pockets, but the Kiwi boys always have that, and I know you guys call it the mana.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I always get the most emotional in those workshops because they seem to come from so much of a heavy background, a lot in southeast Queensland, Logan areas, like, you know, they come from like South Auckland and these gang background and the way they talk about their mothers, like in this incredible way, or their fathers in this incredible way is like, it's mind blowing, you know, it's, they're always, the most powerful sessions is with, you know, Pacific Island boys, and girls, you know, amazing.
Yeah. I think it's definitely not in their culture to speak up like that. So it's pretty cool if you can get that to happen, eh?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that, is, I'll drop a good story that I had at a massive school. It's one of the biggest schools it's the biggest school in Australia, I think, if not the Southern Hemisphere. 4,000 kids, and I reckon 80% of them would be Pacific Island crew. And the other day I was sitting in this room. There's like 200 boys, 250 boys in there. I had Sean Marsh, a cricketer, Sam Riley, an old swimmer, who's board members and ambassadors, and Sauce was shitting himself. Like, He was like, wow, 3/4 of these kids are 5 times bigger than me. They could eat me. Anyway, this one legend gets this real quiet moment. This one legend goes, "Hey, sir," excuse my Kiwi accent. I'm going to do my best, but he goes, "Hey, sir." He goes, "This is fucking boring, hey?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry, bro." And he goes, "Oh, no, not you, sir. You're cool, man. I like this." He goes, "But the brothers, man, we're all being real boring. Like, we've all got stories, boys." And he goes, "I'll give you some of my story." He's like, "My old man died of bowel cancer at the end of last year." He goes, "I don't know when it's going to hit me." He goes, "But when it does hit me," he goes, "I need you fuckers with me." Excuse me. Am I allowed to drop the F-bomb?
Yeah.
He goes, "I'm going to need you fuckers with me." Anyway, I was like, this eye-opening moment, this one other legend then gets up, sits up, starts to tell his story. He's like, he's a little Aussie fella. My mum's left. She took off. We don't know where she is. He's like, "My father and I live in a single car garage. That's what we rent, and that's what we live in." He goes, "I hate the government." It's like, "Why do you hate the government, brother?" And he goes, "Because my dog died, and we had nowhere to bury it. So we went down the local park to try and bury it there." And he just starts bawling his eyes out. He's like, "They come and they arrested my dad for this, that, and the rest." And he goes, "I hate him." And all these Kiwi boys, like big Māori boys, just start getting behind him and putting their arm on his back like in a train. And I was like, "Hey, got to interrupt here, legend." I said, "You know these boys?" And he's like, "Nah, Tommy, I don't know. Sorry, I don't know them." He goes, "I've actually had issues with a couple. Like they bullied me a bit." And he goes, I said, "Mate, what does it feel like to have their back, a hand on your back?" Because they were at one knee with their hands like that on his back, and he just started tearing up again. He goes, "It feels like hope." And then he sat down. They all hug him. They're doing what you legends do, nose to nose, and then he sat down. This other legend gets up, and he's a big Māori boy, and he goes, "My mum gets picked up every afternoon when I was little. My mum used to get picked up in the afternoons and then dropped home in the next morning, and she'd be black and blue, beaten up and scratches, and she'd just throw a loaf of bread on the table and some milk." And he said, "I'd just watch her, like she was doing everything she could to feed us." He said, "I'd get my brothers and my sisters ready for school, and we go to school." And he's in tears, man. Like all the boys then are up and around him. Everyone's holding him. And by that stage, I've sort of moved just to the back, and this epic Kiwi dude at the start who started that first bit, who said it's boring, he just gets them all in his arms. And he goes, "See, boys," he goes, "we've all got stories." He said, "We've got to stop beating each other up out on the streets and stop bashing each other. And we've got to stop going to jail." And he goes, "Man, we're going to start to do more of this shit. We're going to start to be brothers, And I was just going, boys, like, this is the most incredibly powerful experience I've ever had, And there's an old sporting line that's out of that book, Legacy, like, once you know what you're playing for off the field, you play better on it. And it's the same with the classroom. It's the same in a corporate situation. Once the boys know what's going on around them, brings them together, And once we're together, once we've got men looking over our shoulder and looking after us, mate, we're in a much safer, comfortable position. And when you're in a safer, comfortable position, you've got a much better opportunity, I reckon, at life. So, hopefully I haven't strayed too far from your question, or hopefully I answered.
No, that's good, man. It's awesome. I guess it's like that purpose, belonging, being part of something, isn't it? And it's like, I don't like, especially, some of those Pacific Islander Māori boys have had, like, especially in New Zealand, like some of them have lost some of their culture stuff, like their language and stuff like that. And when they find that and they feel like they belong, and they are proud of their culture, and they understand it, and that changes things too, eh? So, and I guess it's just like that vulnerability, like it's just something it's pretty hard to create with teenagers. So you're doing pretty epic things.
Yeah, mate, it's interesting,
It's not that hard. Maybe it's just we're not brave enough to do it.
Well, it's about taking that risk, and it's about making yourself look silly. Like, so, I walk into a room full of teenage boys, and the first thing I'll do is, call out haircuts, have a laugh with them, take the piss out of each other, boom. But But as well as that, like I'm looking for the top dogs, right? And
Yeah.
the dudes that play up and the smart asses, and I go, mate, I like you. You're a good fella, mate. And they're like, you what? You like me? Teachers normally hate me, because I'm rude and I'm loud. But I'm like, mate, you got to be a smart ass, boys. You got to have fun. We're young blokes, And then when I say that, bloke will look at me and I go, oh mate, I'm 43. I am a young bloke still. So I take the piss, But then it's about as soon as that smart ass shares or that tough guy shares something, and it doesn't matter what he says, you just celebrate. You go, mate, that's gold. Like, mate.
Yeah.
And then you say, mate, when was the last time you were able to speak like that? They go, oh, never, sir. So mate, who likes hearing this fella talk like this? Whole room goes up and he's like, shit. That's what shifts it, mate. I did a year 3 workshop the other day in 20 minutes. And had a little epic little Kiwi dude stand up. This is on the Gold Coast. And I was like, find your feet if you've ever been bullied. 20 kids stand up, girls and boys. They sit down, find your feet if you've ever bullied anyone. They stand up. Stay standing if they're in the room. 10 boys stay standing. Stay standing if you got the ability to say sorry to them. All of them sit except for one little fella. He's got the hell mullet. Mate, he's bigger than me. He's grade 3.
Yeah.
And I said, mate, do you want to say something to that person? And he goes, oh, sir, I won't say anything to them because the last time I said something, I saw that I broke their heart in front of me. So he goes, I just want to say I'm real sorry because they know who they are. He said, but I called them fat and lazy. This is a kid in grade 3. He goes, I called them fat and lazy. And when I said it, I could see their heart break. He said, and I shouldn't have, but I've got stuff going on at home and I don't know how to, talk about it because I'm angry, and his teacher just starts howling right behind me. I was like, are you all right? And she's like, I've never heard, I've been his, and she's stumbling. And I said, oh, we'll leave you there. I said, what's this fella normally behave like? And all of these kids start going, he's rude, he's mean, he's angry, he bullies people. And these kids just going like, he's dropping. And I said, well, what's he behaving like now? And mate, little kids are going, he's being respectful, he's listening, he's kind, and he starts to lift up. And it's like, well, find your feet if you want this kid to behave more like this instead of how he used to. Boom, they all jump to their feet, mate. This little dude's just like, whoa. Mate, he just found his feet. Now, he might go back to being a complete little ass again in a few days' time. But he'll always have that moment where the standard in his life was up to there, and he'll never forget it. He'll go, you know what? I want to go back to there. I want to get back to that point of salt. If we ever run a marathon and then we don't do any training again and we're doing 10Ks and 15Ks again, you know what? I want to get back to the marathon standard. That's where I want to get to. So doesn't matter what grade they are or sporting teams. It's your ability to stand in front of them or with them and go, hey, I'm one of you guys. And I've got shit going on, and let's have it. Let's have a chat about it.
Yeah. So because ironically, when you said about, when I saw your stuff on that bully day, we talk about standing up to bullying and stuff, but as you just said, it's not. I don't know if it's about standing up to them. It's more about understanding why they're bullying, right? No one's born an arsehole and no one wants to be an arsehole. They're just being an arsehole because they don't know how to be nice or they don't belong or something's going on, right? So
exactly.
I remember when I was a teenager, I can remember vividly this one guy I used to pester horribly. And I got bullied as well. And it's just like that whole pecking order of bloody the chickens, right? I get picked on, so I'll pick on the next guy. And it's just it was a culture thing. Everyone did it. But it was it was savage. And it was just insecurity and trying to fit in and just bullshit, it was horrible. But it was kind of accepted and it's horrible, but
mate, it's like when you're on the highway and you're caught in traffic and there's an accident up front, but you're sitting in your car going, oh shit, God, I've got to get somewhere, I've got to be somewhere, and you don't think about the accident until you get up next to it and you see the ambulances, you see the smashed car, you see the family going like that. And that's when you understand the impact of it. And you go, shit, I hope everyone's all right, thinking of their family. It's exactly the same with this bullying. we don't think
Mm.
about it. We don't think about the impact of it until we're in a room with someone and they
Yeah.
say, hey, like, I've tried to take my own life a few times because this absolutely breaks my heart. But then there's also the impact of it around us, the people that we solve. So we fix, so my opening page on Find Your Feet on my workshop is cis champion looking down the valley in Crumman Valley. And I'll put that up there, and I'll give it context on that in a second. He stands up in a workshop. This kid, there's about 150 blokes. It's year 11, and this legend stands up who's bright red hair, big glasses, like every opportunity to get bullied. Squeaky voice, stands up in front of everyone, and a couple of blokes chuckle as he goes forward. And he goes, boys, and his incredible voice I can't do, but boys, I hate my life. I don't want to be here. I've tried to kill myself a few times. I get bullied every day for how I look, how I talk. He goes, I've got no friends. I sit on my own. He said, one of the saddest parts for me, though, is when I cry myself to sleep, when I eventually stop crying, I can hear my mum in the room next door crying. And I knew his mum personally, like an amazing lady. And if you got kids, and anyone listening who's got kids, like your kids are your number one and your priority. And when you know they're hurting in school, it breaks your heart to send them off to school. It's like, anyway, mate, it went dead quiet for about a minute, and this legend just jumps forward and he goes, "Hey, Tommy, can I say a few words?" I was like, "Brother, go for it." I said, "Mate, I'm lost for words." And he goes, turns to this dude and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "Mate, I reckon I'm 100% responsible for what's going on in your life." He goes, "I bully you when you come into school. I see you, I line you up." He goes, "When you're on your own, I sit back and I yell stuff out at you. When you're on your own, I encourage others to go over and bully you." He goes, "It's just shit, mate, and I'm sorry. I didn't know the impact of it. I didn't know that you were at that point, and I'm sorry." He walks over, gives him this huge hug, right, and he turns back and he goes, "Mate," he goes, "at home, Dad's left." He goes, "Mum's smoking pot every day. She gets violent." He goes, I'm fucking," he goes, "I'm over it. Like, I don't know what to do. And I come to school and all my anger, I take it out on you because you're the easiest to take it out on." And he goes, "I'm sorry. Like, I've seen the impact of it." And on that day, I say to him and say to the room, like, "Hey, dude, you just saved not only this legend's life, who's you've been bullying, but you saved his mum's life because she no longer cries herself to sleep. The dad as well, because he no longer has to sit and see his wife crying herself to sleep and worry about losing his boy. You saved your life and you turned it around." I was like, "Did you know you were capable of that?" And he's like, "No, I didn't think I could do that." He goes, "Like, I'll be honest," he goes, "I punched a few cones before I come to school today." He goes, "That's what I know I'm capable of." So I said, "Epic, boys." I said, "Hey, at the end of this year, boys, we're doing a run up Crumman Valley." And only 7 of them showed up, right?
Yeah.
And I got them 4.5 Ks into this trail run. And I stopped them and I go, "Oh, boys, I've got to be honest. This is actually a 25K run." And they shit themselves. And they were like, "We're going back. We're going." I was like, "You boys don't know how to get back. There's no trail, right?" Anyway, we had to keep running. Boys are crying. Old mate who did what he did in that classroom, he gets like, eventually they push through. He gets like 18.5 Ks. He goes, "How far have we gone?" I said, "Mate, you've done 18.5 Ks. Like, look at my fancy Garmin watch." And he looked at it, looks back down the valley. I snapped these photos and he looks back and he's crying. I was like, "What's going on for you, brother?" And he goes, "Man, I just didn't know I was capable of this." He goes, "I knew I could get up, smoke cones, be rude to my mum, be rude in class, be rude at school." He's like, "My whole plan in life was to live out of my van, surf, smoke pot, and just do my absolute best just to stay alive." He goes, "I never knew I was capable of running this far," right? That guy's now studying to be a school teacher. He's a yoga teacher with young people. He lives this really clean life. He runs daily, does stretches daily. Like, he's just completely found his feet, and he never knew, right, that's what he was capable of. And that's a big push with this workshop. A lot of us don't know what we're capable of.
Yeah.
Like for me, I was a bloke that lived, the old Goggins, he always says we live at 40%, Dave Goggins.
Yeah.
And mate, I was living at 20%. Like, I could go out and drink 20 schooners and get home at 2 a.m. And now I get up at 2 a.m. and I run 20 Ks. Like, that's how I've flipped it. And then of an afternoon, the boys will say, "Let's go and have a beer." I go, "Yeah, let's go and have a quick 2 or a fast 4." And then that's it. I set a boundary. So Yeah.
Yeah, I think that like Kiwi Aussie sort of have the drinking culture is pretty similar, eh? Like, you know, it's how many beers you can have as a badge of honor if you can't
Yeah.
drink after a week, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I've I've gone the same as you. Like, I pretty much don't drink unless it's like, oh yeah, I'll have a beer with a mate if there's the reason for it. But I'm not just going to have one for the sake of it,
Yeah.
and I'm not just going to get wasted for the sake of it. I'll celebrate something, or but it's just, and it's weird. It was weird to start with, eh? Like, it was like, oh, why are you not drinking? And have to explain yourself,
Yeah,
which is
exactly, mate.
weird. That's weird as well, you know. Like, it shouldn't be weird,
Mate,
but it is.
no, exactly. So, mate, a big part of my story, like I got right into that. I mean, I was drinking every day, 15 beers easy a day. And it got to a point though where one night I'm sitting here in my house and two blokes are into me. One was a Kiwi dude, and he's like, "Oh man, you got to see a kinesiologist." And I was like, What's a kinesiologist, mate? I'm from Tugun. Like, closest thing we got to that is like a old fella who volunteers at the footy club and does rub downs. You know, no, you got to see it. And I say to the boys, like, what happened on this night was my laundry pile of all my stuff that I didn't air with my mates built up, and I lost my shit. And I just told them, I went, "Fuck you." Picked up a bottle of red wine, sculled it top to bottom, threw it across the room, and I said, "You boys have got no idea how much pain and anger and hurt I've got from my old man. Like, F you, tell me I need to see this. It's not a quick fix." And I trashed the house till like 3 a.m. And one left, one mate bolted, the other dude stayed and watched the whole thing. And my wife was there, and ended up at 3:30 under the house, saying, "I want to go home to Queensland because I live in Sydney now, and I want to go home to the Gold Coast." And I was saying, "I want my mummy." I was 35. I was 3 years after meeting Bastian and having that first moment. And I was saying, "I
Yeah.
want my mummy." And my wife's looking at me going, "Where's my husband? Where's my man? Like, I need a bloody man, someone I can rely on." And I got this dude saying he wants his mummy. Nothing wrong with me crying, right? Crying's beautiful.
Yeah.
But I was
Yeah.
wanting my mummy, you know. Anyway, ring my mate. He tells me, "F off. Don't ring me till, you're sober. Ring me tomorrow. I love you." Boom. I go into this rehab place. They send me to a counselor. And the first thing I did when I sat down with her, I was like, "Hey, Elizabeth, I was sitting there last night and I was like, I want my mummy." "Well, what's that about? I'm 35. And she goes, she's a ripper old lady. I've been seen her for 7 years. She goes, "Darling," calls me darling. It's beautiful. "Darling, the reason you were saying you want your mummy at the age of 35 is because you're a wounded boy and you behave like a wounded 10-year-old boy, the same 10-year-old boy that was in the car the day your mum turned around and said she doesn't love your dad anymore." She goes, "You've never learned how to be a functioning adult. You've never learned how to own your stuff. You've never learned how to be your own man." She said, "When things don't go your way, what do you do?" And I said, "I stomp my feet. I get angry. I cry." She goes, "Exactly. What does your 10-year-old son do?" Almost that. She goes,
Yeah.
"I got to get you to a point where you're behaving like a functioning adult. When your wife is not on point and she is having a bad day yourself, I got to get you to the point where you don't take that on board as your issue." She goes, "You're so codependent. You got to realize it's not all about you." And it was incredible. Like, it was one of the greatest things. I remember the first barbecue I went to after it, like, I wasn't drinking. I had 9 months of no drinking and I wasn't drinking. And it was like I was covered in spiders. Like the boys didn't want to know me. I was breaking the
Yeah.
ultimate rule. And
Yeah.
wasn't for a few days after where the two mates ring and they go, "Oi, what's going on, man? You're not drinking anymore?" I was like, "Nah, boys, I need an extended break." Like, and one of them was like, "Mate, that's gold. I've been waiting for you to
Yeah.
have this moment. I love you." And he's been in my pit crew ever since. There's been
Nice.
blokes who have been in it and dropped out, but
Yeah.
I know what a good pit member does, and they let you have a beer if you want to have one, but they pull you up when you've had too many. And they'll also go, "Hey, you know what, Tommy? It's Friday, Arvo, mate. I'm going home. I've got Saturday sport tomorrow with my kids, and they're my priority.
Yeah.
I love you, but my kids are my priority." So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting one. You find those blokes that let you be who you need to be, but they also set a standard, and that's what the workshop does, And in a sporting context, when you know that the man next to you is going to be there for you at all times, when you're playing next to that person on the field, Mate, I can remember Sonny Bill Williams talking about it, when he was playing in the All Blacks and they broke curfew one night. Coach said, no going out and drinking piss, and him and 5 other blokes went out, and it was one of the guys' idea. When they got caught, he said there was a big team meeting, and the coach said, like, stand up if it was you that broke curfew. And he said 4 of them stood up, and the guy whose idea it was didn't stand up. And he's like going, how do I trust this person? Like, how do I play with this person when they can't own their shit like that? And I don't. Is that a well-known story in Kiwi? That story, or the?
I have heard that one recently. I don't know. I heard Sonny Bill say it on a reel or something, but no.
Yeah, I liked it.
Common. I heard it recently. Yeah.
I really liked it. Like, I love being around men now that talk about their wives in a really positive way. Every now and again, they might say, "Geez, my missus was off this morning," but I used to spend time around blokes that would write their wives off. And say, oh, she's this and she's that. And now I love getting around men that love and respect their wives and talk about them in a really healthy way, because it helps me do that, because I grew up in an environment where that wasn't modelled. Love to be around fellas that go running and swimming. I'm talking too much, mate.
No, that's the whole idea. It's good. Well, the weird thing is, though, it's not that weird, but it's common. You watch anything posted about Sonny Bill in social media in New Zealand, and 90% of the comments just ripping him to pieces. And I always stand up for him, because I'm like, what has he done wrong? Like, he's good at multiple sports.
What do they say about him?
Mate, they say all sorts. Oh, he's a pretty boy, just all in it for the money. It's just like insecurity, like, it's tall poppy syndrome, right? He's good at multiple things. How dare you? He's making money. How dare you? He's got a family that he's too perfect for them or something. Right? And now, obviously, he's changed religion and all these things that. It's ridiculous, and it's like so these are grown men just abusing publicly with their own profile. Or some of them probably are too weak to have their actual picture and name on there, but but it's just, I find it you don't have to like the guy as an athlete, but they're just straight personal the whole time. And even when he was you think he's playing for the All Blacks, he's playing for your team. And I've talked to quite a few athletes that know him, and no one ever speaks badly of him. He's the hardest trainer, nicest guy, best teammate,
Yeah, well, he sets a standard. And it's hard for people when they've got that person in their life, and whether it's Sonny Bill or it's your mate Bill down the street, if that mate down the street is constantly in front of you going, mate, I'm not going to go and drink piss with you.
Yeah.
I love you, but I'm not going to. The weaker one's going to get angry at that and go, why not, mate? What's something to do with me? Well, you got the shits with me, mate, you prick. Whatever, boom, right? It's so much easier to do that behaviour. Or it's actually really hard to go, hey, shit, mate. Yeah, you're right, buddy. Maybe I shouldn't be going and drinking piss every couple of days the way I am. Mate, I appreciate you putting that in front of me. And I think that's the same with our athletes. I mean, fancy having a crack at the guy for going for, after money. Like I imagine that guy donates and is incredibly generous, with what he does. And but anyway, it is that tall poppy syndrome. I mean, that's what happens in a school, or you get the top dogs that they set a standard of, maybe they're at 30 or 40%, right, of how we can operate, and that standard is bullying. It's pushing blokes around. It's talking down to the women in the class or in the school. Shitty bloody the way they dress. And that's all revered. And that's like, wow, this dude's, they're top dogs. They're popular. I ought to get with them, right? And what they do, they push, anyone tries to come up, they push them down, right? But in a workshop, we provide this platform where it's completely quiet, and the little dude, it's always the little dude who stands up first. And I had a legend the other day at a school, Endeavour Sports in Sydney, and a lot of Polynesian boys. It was epic. And this little dude gets up, Aussie fella, and he's like, He'd been bullied to no end, and he stood up and he goes, "My cat died last week." And I looked across the room, and the boys are looking at him like semi about to laugh. And I go, "Hey, brother, there's more going on than your cat dying. Hey, give us some insight, mate." Knowing quite well that he was everyone's buddy kicking tea. And he goes, yeah. He goes, "I hate school. I hate coming here. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to be here anymore. I've tried to take my own life." And as he's doing that, he starts crying, and boys start getting up out of their chair, and they go over to him and they sit around him, and they see him cry. And all of a sudden, he's roared past that 40% mark. He's up at 60, 80. He's set a standard way up here, and those boys are sitting around him going, "Shit, look what we've been doing to this fella." But also, look how brave he is, how strong he is, how courageous he is. He's called us out on shitty behaviour without having to point the finger at us. He's made us realise how we've acted. And he's up there now. And we start to look at that as top dog. That's the level that we want to be at. And I think, we do the same with our athletes and our role models. It's so much easier to bring them down or knock them down, and instead of actually going like, wow, I could learn a few things from this person. And instead of going, he goes to the money, you go, wow, he's earning a lot of money, but he's also giving it away, and he's, he's setting a standard for other Samoan footballers, Go after it. Don't sit at Canterbury and just accept what you're given. Go after it. Break a rule. Go to France. Take a risk. Become one of the greatest athletes of all time, which he could be put in that situation.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's like Brad Thorne, another All Black who played for Queensland. Just the way I've heard that fella operates. Richie McCaw, far out. Don't just be a good All Black, be a great All Black. Dan Carter, kick from the sideline with one foot, learn how to do it with the other. I used one of your ones the other day in a workshop, year 6 down here in Cronulla. And, there was chairs everywhere. It was epic. We'd hit the spot. The workshop worked so well. And I was like, hey, boys, before we go, we're 15 minutes into lunch, but we're going to clean up this room. You're going to stack those chairs. You're going to clean up the floor. And I said, I learnt this from the All Blacks. Like, no one cleans up after the All Blacks. The All Blacks clean up after themselves. And same for you boys here at Lady Fatima College at Cronulla. No one cleans up after you boys. You boys clean up after yourselves. And when we can start to adopt those mantras, those skills, those tools, all of a sudden we lose this want to bring people down and make ourselves feel better, because we all of a sudden feel better because we're doing it. That's always so. I got this young fellow I work with, and he rings me every hour about 3. I'm no good. I'm angry. I don't want to be here. I want to kill myself. It's like, what have you done today, mate? I've just been inside the house all day. It sucks. It's shit. Who you got to blame, mate? What are you blaming, your mum and your dad? You're saying they're this and you're saying they're that. Get off your ass. Own your shit. Get outside. Have a run. Have a swim. Ring me after it. And he'll do it. You go, man, I feel so much better. Do you want to tell your mum and dad still to piss off and get effed? Nah. I go, mate, the reason you don't want to do that is because you're happy with yourself and you don't need to take it out on other people. Go and own your shit and do it yourself, so you're not sitting back taking pot shots at legends like Sonny Bill. And the reason, mate, I can reflect and talk on this the way I am is because that's what I did. Did that forever. I still catch myself every now and again of talking shit about someone. I go, hey, why am I doing that? Why am I doing that? Whereas I never would have thought that in the past. I would have just done it.
Yeah.
And and it's just small-minded, filling in all my little holes that I need to fill in a healthy way.
There's a guy. Do you remember? There's a boxer. I don't know if he was that well known worldwide, but remember there was Butterbean, but then there's the guy. There's a guy in New Zealand called Brown Butterbean, this Māori Samoan guy.
Yeah, right.
He's huge, massive dude. He's crazy background. Born into a gang. Went in and out of jail. Had all this stuff go down, right? But then he got into boxing, and he created this ego of like the brown butter bean. He was a create, like they be this character, and he was being an asshole, and he was chirping shit, and as they do. But then once he finished his boxing career, he went on and he started a program similar to yours, but it's more about it's similar because it's the same sort of mindset stuff, but it's around losing weight and getting out into the community and getting yourself off the couch, and incredible stuff. Like he's got hundreds of thousands of followers. He's making the community better. He's actually a really nice bloke. I met him at a gym one day, and I was like, he's actually a nice bloke. And there's this thing on my Facebook that comes up every year. And when he was in boxing, I wrote this post like, I can't remember, it goes like, I hope this so and so gets beaten up. He's got too much to say. Like, it's awful. It's so toxic. Like, I should delete that, but I actually keep it because every year it comes out. It reminds me of like, okay, that's where I was, like at that 40% you're talking about. And now it's like, like just judgy, tall poppy, like just abusive. And then you get to know the guy. He's actually a really good bloke, done amazing things, and I don't feel like an idiot now. It was good learning,
Mate, it's an interesting one too, isn't it? When like I'm listening to music, I love my country music, and listening to this song the other day, and this bloke I'm with, he's like, "Oh man, I've heard he's a real wanker." That fella's like, "Mate, I don't want to meet him. I don't need to meet him. I just love his music, right?" If I meet him and he is like that, I'm gonna hate his music. I just want to love his music. So, and you know what? This is the beauty of these guys and girls. Like, talk about my ambassadors, just absolute legends. Like Mitchy Marsh, Australian captain at the moment, going into a World Cup, and I took him to a workshop the other day and walked him in. 100 boys and girls in the room, grade 12 and grade 11 they were, sorry, and didn't introduce him. And he walked and sat at the back. The boys are walking in going, whispering, and I do this on purpose. And I introduced him, and I go, "Look, hey, crew, some bloody weird bloke at the back there. You'd never met him. Mate of mine, Mitch, great fella. He's just interested in the work. He's here to check it out, right?" I don't need to say who it is. They know who it is. And again, if I say he's the Australian captain, I look like a wanker. And all of a sudden, they're just there going, "Oh, I won't say anything in front of him. He's Mr. Perfect. He's achieved so much, right?" Whereas he hasn't. He's got so much going on still, right? He's a legend. He has achieved so much, but he's still got so much going on. Anyway, workshop happens. It's a legend. This little fella gets up. He talks about how he gets bullied all the time. He's like, the only things I can control now is how I treat others and how I talk. He's like, so I don't swear anymore. It was an amazing moment for me. I've dropped 4 or 5 on here. I'll call this because I'm working, but I've been counting of a day how many times I dropped the F-bomb, and I've really cleaned myself up, and I learnt that from this kid, right? But anyway, goes in this other dude who talks about his brother's an ice addict. One night, like, he himself was like, I just got up on a chair in the garage and I went to put my head in a noose, pulled it out, went into my mum's room, laid in bed with her, and he said, I just cried all night. And he said, I've gotten to the point now. By the time he'd said that, he's in tears, but his mates had gotten up around him. There's girls in the room crying. And he's like, I'm so proud of the man I am now. I can now be who I need to be because I've overcome where I was, right? And Mitch is up the back just going like, what is going on here? And anyway, finishes up, gives this bloke a hug. Teacher's like, we need to have a photo. And I was like, yeah, we better have a photo with the Australian captain, eh? Like, I can say it now. Anyway, Mitch came down, didn't look at me, didn't look at anyone else, but this one kid he had a beeline for, and he walked over and he just goes, hey, the kid's name was Darcy. He goes, Das, you are one of the most inspiring people I've ever met. Like a lot of boys heard that, and girls heard it. And this Darcy, every time now he sees Mitch out on a platform, out playing cricket on an international stage, there's no he's up there and I'm down here. It's, hey, we shared a moment. And that, like, it was special. Like, it's same Nico Hines. I don't know, Nico Hines is at Cronulla, and I took him to a private school in Sydney, and I just said, oh, mate, I'm on Nico, plays a bit of local footy in Caringbah. And all the boys going, Nico, like, is this guy kidding himself? Anyway, this little dude got up and he, in 10 minutes into it, he starts talking about being bullied for having red hair. And I was like, mate, whoever did this, like, what an opportunity for them to stand up. Are they in the room? And he goes, yeah, they're in the room. He goes, they don't need to stand up and own it, Tommy. Like, don't worry about it. He goes, they made their bed. They can sleep in it. Like, they know what they did wrong. He goes, we all know what they did wrong. He was calling it out. There was the energy. It was mad, eh? And I'm looking at one dude who's just sitting there going, and Nico just jumps straight up and goes, hey, boys, buddy, Tommy told me that I didn't need to talk and I'm just meant to sit. But, mate, what you just did was one of the bravest, most solid things. And this kid just jumps in and goes, mate, are you Nico Hines? And Nico goes, mate, I am, but it doesn't matter who I am, right? I've experienced exactly what you've experienced. I still experience it. People have pot shots at me online about how I'm playing footy. And all of a sudden, like, my work was done. They're on the same level. And that little legend will never, ever forget the moment that he broke Nico's, or not even Nico's, but he got Nico to jump in and start to tell his story. And doesn't matter who Nico is. Doesn't matter who Sonny Bill is. Yeah. They've got stuff going on. They're like us. They've achieved in different areas. But if your greatest goal in life or your greatest success isn't your family or your kids or your own well-being, your own fitness, then, realistically, you probably need to recalibrate. Like, that should be our priority. My old man and I, unfortunately, don't speak anymore. But he said one solid thing to me once. He was like, he said, happy birthday. And I said, yeah, shit, I'm getting old. He goes, well, it's better than the alternative, isn't it? I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you could not be here at all, right? I was like, shit, pretty true. Just be grateful for every single day being here, another opportunity. I lost a really good friend to a brain tumor 2 years ago, and his sister put up something about 12 months ago online on Instagram and said, my brother would do anything for one more day on earth. He would take all of your minuscule issues that you're dealing with, the mess on the couch, the dishwasher, packing, unpacking, just for one more day with his kids. And it really hit home for me. And, it's a bloody gift, and we've just got to embrace it, haven't we? I'm rambling again, mate.
No, it's good. It's good, man. I was going to ask about those investors. So have you just done, some of them you obviously met and and then have you just managed to pick, because you got like 20 or something, 15 guys?
Got a heap of legends.
Yeah.
Was
Matty
so
Hayden
mate,
the first guy?
He
started? That's pretty good stuff.
How did you know that one? Because he was, maybe I'll talk about it.
I think I listened to one of your podcasts you're on and you talked about it. Yeah,
Matty Hayden is mate. When I think about Matty Hayden, it's hard to get through to the big man because he's in India or he's all over the world, right?
Yeah.
But Matty Hayden's one of the most special, most beautiful, most honest, most genuine speaking humans that you'll ever come across. I was lucky enough to go to a conference. Oh, mate, it was a conference cross piss up at Richard Branson's joint, right, in the Caribbean.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it was madness. I think, I'm with a timer. Yep. All right, start it again. Something happened? Yep. Okay. Hasn't deleted the last hour what we're talking about? And anyway, we're at the airport and I'm chatting with this legend, Damien, who's a good fella. And he goes, mate, I know someone who can help you with this. Matty Hayden, you know him? I was like, mate, I'm a Queenslander. Do I know him? Like, mate, he's our Lord. Anyway, he goes, I'll text him right now and we'll put him on a group message. And he puts it in there and he sends it off. And Matty writes back, Tommy, what are you hanging around with Victorians for, mate? Bloody good to meet you, legend, Queensland. I'll ring you in 6 weeks. I'm in India. I'll ring you as soon as I land and I'm on the way home to the family. Anyway, 6 weeks later, I'm up here. I'm having a can and I get this phone call. He goes, mate, it's Doss. I was like, yeah, who? Matty Hayden. I was like, oh, mate, how are you? And he goes, mate, I don't have long because I'm about to pull up at home. Can you come up to Brizzy? Let's go to Stratty for a few days. I want to hear about what you're doing. I was like, what? So anyway, I hung up the phone. 3 days later, I get on the plane, but I have an argument with my wife before I get on the plane, and a big argument. And I fall back into my old ways. And as soon as I get to Matty, without even thinking about this opportunity I'm given, I try to impress him. I go, mate, my missus is mad, this, that, and the rest. I said, let's go to the Cleveland before we get on the ferry. Let's have a quick 6. Thinking he'd be all like, yeah, let's go. And he looks at me and he pulls a car over on the side of the road and he goes, what are you fucking talking about? So let's go on, mate. And he goes, mate, have you ever thought about like, you're away a lot with your work and he goes, have you ever thought about the impact that has on your missus? And he goes, I'll give you an example. He goes, when I was in India, he goes, I'd get treated like a lord, you know, and he said, you know, everywhere I go, Lord Hayden, and they'd just fall all over me. And he goes, I came home one time and I remember walking in the house and going, why isn't this done? Why isn't that done? And he said, my wife just looked at me and goes, Matt, are you kidding me? Like, I've been on my own for 3 months. He goes, I hadn't bothered to put myself in my wife's shoes. He said, have you done that? And I was like, wow. Oh, no. And I was like, mate, I don't think I've had a mate bloody do that to me or a bloke. And he goes, well, mate, one thing you'll learn about me is I've got conviction. He goes, I'll bloody tell you. He goes, I never used to walk to the wicket thinking I hope to make runs. Every time I went to the wicket, I was making runs. And he goes, it's the same with my relationships, my friendships. Every day I've just got to be the best bloke that I can be. Anyway, he goes, you still want to go and have 6? I said, nah, I feel better. And he goes, well, you better be thirsty because we'll have 1 or 2 on the ferry. And mate, we just spent the next 3 days and just getting to know each other. He learned about Find Your Feet and he's just forever been that mentor. And then, mate, lucky enough to meet Mitchy Marsh through him and surfing in Indonesia. And Mitch was like, whatever I can do, mate, let me know. And I was like, well, mate, this work's all about, you know, helping blokes go through stuff like you've just been through. And he goes, stuff I've just been through. Right. And I was like, yeah, you know, like with your dad dying. He goes, Swampy? And I was like, Swampy? Yeah, Rod. And he goes, mate, that's not my dad. He goes, my old man's Jeff Marsh. Yeah. And he looks at me and he goes, man, you don't know much about cricket. And I was like, mate, I know it's a good place to go and drink piss. But, you know, and they've just all sort of come on. But Alex Glenn, who's a good Kiwi boy. But, you know, the reason they're there, mate, there's no red carpet with Find Your Feet. What you're looking at right now is what I sleep in when I travel out bush. I do my work. I do my podcast in here in my truck. We don't have an office. I've got one staff who's a mental mechanic. I call him a youth worker. And, mate, we're just out doing the work. It's a not-for-profit. I rarely charge any schools. And the ambassadors have to be of the same ilk. You know, there's no grandstanding. There's no one who's bloody stood up on pedestals. They have to be vulnerable. You know, someone like Sean Marsh, who's an ambassador, just one of the greatest humans ever. You know, he stood up in front of a workshop when a boy stood up and talked about being anxious and having a panic attack. Sauce jumped up, grabbed him and goes, shit, boys, I didn't even think I was going to say anything today. But he said, if I could have said that when I was 15, that I suffer anxiety and panic attacks, he goes, my career would have been completely different. You know, he said a lot of people used to think I was arrogant and shit like that. He goes, but I'm not arrogant at all. Like, I'm just scared of talking to people because I'm scared I'm going to stuff up. So I wouldn't talk. And then they'd say things about me. And the way that I dealt with that was by drinking piss. And then I'd have the pressure. He goes, but if I could have gotten off my chest, I would have been a different human. And the minute he does that, the boys go, wow, he's one of us. You know, and that's an ambassador in my eyes. An ambassador, I got no need to sit at tables in penguin suits and drink bloody fancy piss, mate. My favourite places to be in amongst the punters and hearing stories and telling stories. Mate, I'd love to. Like I said, nice. I love the
awesome, man. So,
as you fellas call it, the mana. I hope I'm getting that right. The energy, New Zealand, the respect, and I love New Zealand. I love Kiwis. I just reckon you guys are legends. I love the All Blacks. I love how good you're at sailing. I love the Wars, mate. Yeah, had a secret crush on Helen Clark when I was a young bloke. Nah, not really. Mate, I remember being in New Zealand. I was travelling around there in a camper van with my family and went somewhere just north of Auckland and having a feed and talking to this bloke in the pisser. And he goes, where are you from, bro? And I was like, oh, Gold Coast. And he's like, where are you staying? I was like, oh, we got our van. He goes, come camp at our joint, man. We're on the river. And I was like, oh, yeah, cheers. Went and sat back with my wife and he's sitting over there with all his family. And I was like, that dude invited us to camp at his joint. She goes, well, what are we going to do? And I was like, nah, it's all right. We're just in the pisser. And anyway, he gets up and they're about to leave and he comes over and he goes, hey, man, here's my address, bro. We're going home. We, a few beers. I'll put them on ice and we'll have a feed. And he goes, come and stay, man. And it was unbelievable. I was like, bugger it, let's do this. And, mate, went and stayed and it was incredible. Had this beautiful little place right on this river, camped the van, and the kids played and we sat around and talked and had a beer. And, I've just always had, just felt that beautiful love and warmth of Kiwis. Like, a lot like Queenslanders, I reckon, man. And when I say simple, I don't mean simple-minded. I mean, simple as in, hey, what matters most is family, love, respect, roof overhead, and sport. Oh, mate, look, you can't be good at everything. Jesus.
Yeah.
You have, and you will again this year, mate.
I support the Blues, so I hope you don't.
I hope so, anyway.
We've had to suffer for a while, though.
Yep.
No. Yeah. And when I did a season in a cricket season in Canada and England, just like playing club cricket. And
mate,
it's funny how we take the piss out of each other and we hate each other, all this sort of stuff. But as soon as you go abroad, it's
mate,
fair fight and Aussie.
You're best, and you got good Pinot, even though that shit keeps
some
you
of my best
away.
mates over there.
But I don't know anything about red wine, and when we were over
pretty
there,
similar people. It's
sort
pretty good.
It was decent. And anyway, I walked in this joint in Rotorua, and I was like, "Hey, bro, give us your best Shiraz." And he looks at me and he goes, "You don't know much about wine, do you, bro?" And I was like, not really. And he goes, "Man, we just make good Pinot, eh?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, awesome. What's a Pinot?" I'll have one of them. Anyway, I've just always had a heap of love and respect. And, mate, I would love to get over there. And I reckon there's some epic stuff we can do. My mate Andy Reid spends a lot of time over there with Richie McCaw and his wife Gemma doing those epic 48-hour races. And, that'd be just the more work of this work that we can do and the more walls we can knock down, the better. Yeah, for sure. Or you just share the content.
Do you think you could
and you have the people
scale it
turn
so
it
other
into
people
what
can
they
run
want
it
to
for
do
you
with
and
it,
stuff?
you might see it differently of what I do. You might go, you know what, the rules here in Kiwi aren't snitching on your mates and taking risks. Like, you might say something I want to you might, but you might have a different spin on it. You got a different story. But for sure, in the sporting realm, which I know is where your focus is, this is, again, I love that line, when you know what you're playing for off the field, you play better on it. This is exactly what that does. I had a school workshop the other day, sporting school, 5 rugby league boys got up. They'd all lost their mums to suicide in the last 12 months. Yeah. 2 of them were best friends, and they didn't know that that's how their mums had died. They're like, I knew your mum died, but we never talked why. And this big Māori fella grabbed his little mate, just ripped him in, and he goes, brother, we've let each other down, bro. We got to talk more, man. And it's they're there for each other now at all times. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's bloody incredible to be in a space when it happens.
Yeah. I think we were saying that earlier, that we do have a lot of surface level relationships, I'm good. Yeah, well, how's the rugby? How's the watching stuff? It's all pretty surface level, but and I think sometimes we have a few beers, then it comes out a little bit, but it'd be so much better if we could,
mate, exactly,
be comfortable sharing it, just without that need, and
and mate, there's bloke ways we can do it, Kiwi ways, Aussie ways, and I reckon it's as simple as
we all know we do.
I got a good
just
mate,
having the courage to get
I got
started.
a good mate who'll just go, oi, what's going on, mate? You seem bloody, you got the shits, right? That's a simple way of doing it. I like to say to blokes, "Oi, what's up your ass, mate?" I'm asking you that because I love you. So they go, "What's up your ass?" I go, "Oh yeah, don't be so. What are you being nosy for?" But you say, "No, I'm asking you because I love you." Or, "Hey, what's going on, mate? I've noticed you're a bit off."
Yeah.
And I'm probably noticing that because I'm a bit off myself. So you're giving entry points everywhere for them, right? But you're letting them know you're doing it because you love them. Great places to do it. In the change rooms when you're sitting in the benches and you're looking that way, you don't have to look at each other. Playing golf, when you're driving along, you don't have to look at each other. You get up on the tee, you get a break every few minutes because you're playing a shot over there and a shot over there. Out in the ocean's awesome way to have a chat with a mate because you got the distraction of the waves. This bullshit thing that we've got to have a fire and a talking stick. Well, mate, when was the last time we do it, but it's, we're going to find places where we're going to do it in our everyday life. Having a cuppa of a morning with a mate. It's definitely achievable, but it's about stepping out of that comfort and into the toughness and going, "Oi, what's happening?" Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, man. Thanks, man. Love to hear what you're doing. It's I instantly saw that one post and then was like, I haven't been
mate, it's epic.
diagnosed, but I've got
I reckon
ADHD
we've all got
according to this
ADHD.
test I did recently. And one of those things is you find something and you just go deep dive. Like I just like checking all this stuff and checking your profile. It's definitely a lot more people than they think. I since I found out that I've probably got. Well, I'll tell you the story about how.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast to find out, and it was Between Two Beers. I don't know if you've heard of them. It's a couple of Kiwi guys who do. They're probably New Zealand's biggest podcast. They do sports people. Just they're sports people. They do anyone that's sort of well known, but then they also do local legends. Anyway, they got this. They had two people on, and they both had adults. They both got diagnosed with ADHD as an adult. And I was like, "Oh, this would be interesting." I've taught heaps of kids with ADHD. I'd like to know a bit more. And then I was listing off all the symptoms, and I was like, "Oh, it's me. So I did the test online, and there's this test online. It takes 2 minutes, and this is pretty much a self-diagnosis of its own.
Yeah.
I got distracted after a minute, opened another tab, and the test closed. So but then I finished the test the second time, and if you get 14 or under, it's kind of like normal. And if you get more, I was like 21. So,
mate, exactly.
But it's good to once
mate,
you know.
My wife,
it's like
in our depths of
despair,
there's
real benefits to it.
My counselor reckons you've got borderline personality disorder. I was like, all
just
right,
mitigating.
What am I going to do? And she goes, "Well, you got to do this 20-week course." So I went and did it, and far out. Whether I had it or not, the things I learned were epic. And so anything that comes across my desk now, I go, "Oh shit, yeah." And then I'm chatting to my counselor, and she's like, "Tommy, 90% of people have borderline personality disorder." And it's anything that we can learn, we can grow from, we can become better at. For ourselves personally, is huge, but then for our kids and the next generation, it solves the issue for them to have to break this cycle, and they can be better. Like my little fella's the softest, most beautiful little bloke. He's also one of the best smart asses and funny pricks I've ever come across, which is so important. But I love that line that you used before, like, if something's going on, if someone's making noise and being this and that, they've normally got something going on. And a great analogy I always use, I say to young fellas, and it's probably a good one to take out, like for people to take out is, I say, "Do you ever see counsellors?" And they go, "Oh, no, I got me mates, we talk." And I go, "All right, well, look, I got my old red truck, which I'm in now. And when it makes a heap of noise, like I'll often say to my mate Murph, who had one of my same truck as mine, and my mate JR, who had one, my mate Brandon can build them, these Land Rover Defenders." I go, "What's going on?" And Brando might go, "It might be the bearings." And Murph will go, "Oh, it could be sounds like the gearbox. Oh, it could be this." And And I leave going, shit, I hope it is just the bearings because that'll be easy to fix in a gearbox. And I feel a little bit better than it, right? But I say to the young fellas, none of those blokes are mechanics. So until I actually take my truck to the mechanic and work out what's going on, nothing will be solved because the mechanics are professional. And it's what we've got to do. If we've got shit going on, we can go to the pub or we can play footy, we can do our sports stuff and chat with our mates. That's epic. And keep doing that. But the next level is then going, all right, I've got to sort this out because I'm playing up, I'm doing shit I shouldn't be. I need to find a professional to sort out what's going on for me. And you know, geez, let's put it into you know, your Kiwi terms. Don't just be a good bloke, be a great bloke. You know, when you know, walk away going, oh yeah, Murph's right. I'm bloody am playing up a bit at the moment, and I probably need to do something about it. A good bloke can do that, but a great bloke is going to go, shit, Murph's right. I got to go and bloody see someone about this because I don't want to lose my mates or my family. And I'm going to go and sort it out. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I think it's about sorting it out before it gets to the point, right? Like
yeah,
you don't
I
want it to
always
be the
say,
end of the
go and
bottom of the hill. You
see
want it to be like,
your
it's not,
psych or
things
your
aren't
counsellor like
quite
they're a
right.
mechanic
Get
and
it
you're
done
getting
then,
serviced.
rather than,
Don't wait until you're
whereas
going and
I think
seeing your
most people
counsellor
wait
or
till it's
psych
absolutely
like they're a
diabolical.
panel beater and they got to fix everything up. I was out in the bush one time, driving home in my old truck like I am now. They had 10 hours driving to do. Saw a bloke on the side of the road, same sort of truck. And I was like, oh, poor bastard. He's got a big day ahead of him. Smoke's coming out of the front. And then I went, oh, I got that bloody bearing going, that front right wheel's making a bit of noise. Anyway, I drove through town after town. As I got further along, this little noise became louder. And I'm 3 hours out of Sydney, and I'm pulled up on the side of the road, and the wheels completely just bolted up on me. And I went, if I stopped in Nyngan or Cobar and I got it simply the bearing in and out, I wouldn't be broken down on the side of the road now if I dealt with it back then. And a lot of people say that. They go, oh, my issues aren't big, you know, they're small. But it's like that laundry pile analogy I was given at the start. If we don't deal with our stuff, it piles up until eventually we get to the point where we're throwing it all out. And that's what's happening in Australia. We're losing 7 blokes a day in Australia to suicide, you know. So we've got to get better at going, oi, what's up your ass, mate? You know, what's going on for you? And I love you. You're a good bloke. So, hopefully there's some takeaways in there, mate. And hopefully we've recorded both of these because I'm worried the first one.
100%.
Awesome.
Oh, mate, so many. It's definitely the wee red light's still on. We're all good.
Wicked.
It would be disastrous. I have had one where the just sound's been real bad and it's taken like weeks to get the sound right, but we got it back up. But, no, it's good. I saw the best podcasts are awesome, mate. It's just awesome, the best part is the best part. All the other stuff, the editing and the branding and chopping stuff out. That's hard work, but this is the fun part. It's interesting, like because you know, like my neighbour's Robbie Fruin used to play for the Crusaders, so I got him on the first one, and then ever since then I was kind of like, I'll just ask, and you know, these athletes, I was like, they'll probably say no, but I've never actually had anyone say no yet. It's crazy. Like I guess with Instagram, it's pretty easy to get accessible to people.
No, it's good, mate. It's reach, and the more conversations we can have,
a podcast, the more we are, the better we're all going.
You know,
I would never admit you, talk to you, you know.
So
that's pretty cool,
mate. Yeah. Well, let's sort it out. Let's organise it. Let's get some of the rugby schools.
Well, thanks, man. Appreciate your time and all the best with Find Your Feet. I'll be following with interest. And if you ever come to...
I do a workshop with him called Beyond the Wicket with Sean Marsh. It's epic. Sospa sits there shaking like a leaf, the poor fella. You know, because that's who he is. And but let's do it. Let's make it a goal that by the end of the year we do a day in Christchurch or 2 days getting around to a few schools. Awesome. Unreal. All right, Ledge. Appreciate it. Thanks, mate. Enjoy. Go the Kiwis.
That'd be awesome. Love it. Awesome, man. Take it easy, Tommy, and we'll talk soon. Thanks for listening to the Evolve Your Game podcast. Hope you've taken some insight and enjoyed what we had to offer today. Make sure you like and subscribe and share on your socials. Tag us. We would like to see who's listening. And we'll catch you back next week on the Evolve Your Game podcast.